shooting at them if they didn't stop, said one volunteer rescuer. Yes, this is Texas, an open carry state where everybody has a gun. Clyde McCain of the Cajun Navy, a Louisiana-based rescue force that gained fame during Hurricane Katrina, said in one instance a boat broke down, and while the crew sought shelter in a delivery truck, people tried to steal the inoperable boat. They're making it difficult for us to rescue them, Clyde Kane, the Cajun Navy, said. You have people rushing the boat. Everyone wants to get in at the same time. They're panicking. Water is rising. Because of the hostile responses, the Cajun Navy has been forced to halt some rescue attempts, Kane said. We have boats being shot at if we're not picking everybody up, he said. We're having to pull out for a minute. We're dropping an airboat right now to go rescue a couple of our boats that broke, and they're kind of under attack. Keep in mind, we're looking at 500,000 victims. This is a biblical event. Meanwhile, and I don't know how I missed this. This was Sunday. A quarter of the members. This is David Morris writing. A quarter of the members of the National Infrastructure Advisory Council, whose purview includes national cybersecurity, have resigned. In a group resignation letter, they cited both specific shortfalls in the administration's approach to cybersecurity and broader concerns that Trump and his administration have undermined the moral infrastructure of the United States. This is remarkable. The Office of Science and Technology Policy Chief of Staff resigned. The Chief Data Scientist resigned. The letter, the resignation letter from these guys, now this is the cybersecurity advisors, the people who are supposed to make sure that our voting systems are safe, that our internet infrastructure is secure. They write, the moral infrastructure of our nation is the foundation upon which our physical infrastructure is built. This administration's actions undermine that foundation. Amazing. The letter also zeroed in on insufficient attention to the growing threats to the cybersecurity of the critical systems upon which all Americans depend. So if your city gets taken down by, Kim Jong-un or something with a cyber attack, you can have a nice conversation with the Trump administration about that. Meanwhile, back to Houston, a vital dam. This news just came out 2 hours ago. A vital dam in suburban Houston that protects the central city. This is the center of town. The water is being held back by something called the Addicks Reservoir. It's at 108 feet. It's like 40, 50 feet above flood level. One of the, Jeff Linder, Harris County Flood Control District meteorologist, he said, we have never faced this before. We have uncertainty in how the water is going to react as it moves out of the spillway and into the surrounding area. That is to say, the water is spilling into everything. And he says, if you want to leave, now is the time to leave. The reason being, once the water comes into the street, you're not going to be able to leave. Another major dam and reservoir nearby, Barker, is also enduring exceptionally high water levels. They're at the point where they don't know what to do. I mean, they've run out of information. They've run out of actions. Excuse me. They're trying to figure out exactly what can we do? What are the parameters here? And increasingly, we have no options. We've never encountered anything like this before. Now, why would that be? Excuse me, because in the 200,000 to 300,000 years of human history, there has never been this much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. In fact, for the vast majority of human history, we never went above 300 parts per million. We're at 405 now? We never should have gone above 350. Bill McKibben started that group, 350.org, back before we hit 350. That tells you how recently it was. This is serious stuff. And yet this administration and the majority of the Republican Party are so committed to continued funding from petrobillionaires that they continue to even deny that what is happening around us is even happening. Who are you going to believe, right? The Republicans or your lying eyes? Meanwhile, imagine what we would know right now if all the records of the Tuskegee experiment had been destroyed. The Tuskegee experiment, of course, the experiment that happened from, as I recall, the mid-40s to the early 70s. Might be off a little bit on the timing of that, but I believe it was during that period, where they infected a number of African-American men in Tuskegee, what is that, Alabama? I think it is, Tuskegee, Alabama. And this was 1932 to 1970. Thank you, Troy. 1972, 40 years. They infected them with syphilis and then just sat back and watched what happened. Human guinea pigs. Well, after all, they were black men in the South. But we know what happened because they kept the paperwork. Right? We know what happened because, not all of it, but much of it was destroyed, but there was enough of that paperwork kept that we are able to at least have a historical accountability, even if we can't have a contemporaneous accountability. So now we're looking at at ICE, at the Immigrations and Customs Service. We're looking at these guys running detention centers where rape is fairly routine, where people are killed with very little record of it. Sexual assaults happen all the time. It's an absolute screaming mess, and it's happening in privatized prisons, so they want to bury this stuff. They want to hide it. And the headline from the ACLU, this is by Victoria Lopez, senior staff attorney with the ACLU National Prison Project. The headline reads, ICE plans to start destroying records of immigrant abuse, including sexual assault and deaths in custody. ICE has asked for permission to begin routinely destroying 11 kinds of records, including those related to sexual assaults, solitary confinement, and even the deaths of people in its custody. Other records subject to destruction include alternatives to detention programs. Oh, we can't learn that there's an alternative to a private for-profit prison? No, you can't learn about that. Regular detention monitoring reports, logs about people detained in ICE facilities. Oh, we don't need to know who these people are or where they are, after all. And communications with the public reporting detention abuses. And then they point out, for years, advocates in communities across the country have denounced human rights abuses in the detention system. Many of the records that ICE proposes for destruction offer proof of the mistreatment endured by people in detention. And the agency that oversees ICE has provisionally approved their proposal, and their explanations for doing so, for approving this, are, according to the Victoria Lopez, the ACLU's lawyer, troubling. They posited that in cases of sexual assault, the information is highly sensitive and does not warrant retention. Right. Because a woman who's been raped by a jail guard or by a fellow prisoner wouldn't want anybody to know about that, right? Because that's just like embarrassing, right? I mean, this is the kind of logic that is driving. This is the Joe Arpaio, Donald Trump kind of logic. This is the old patriarchy logic. This is bizarre.